Sasha Eisenman, 46 years old, I think. And I joined in, I believe, June 2018. And I'm a professor at Temple University. I've seen a lot of changes. I had been doing a lot of more cardio, lighter weight workouts, probably more than I do now, longer periods, like hour a day, that kind of thing. But I've, gained a lot of muscle weight over these last 5 years. I'm heavier than I am when I came in, like 20 pounds, maybe more heavier, mostly muscle. And, my max rep, 1 rep maxes are much higher than when I started. I remember one of my goals was to be able to do pull-ups, can do pull-ups, working on other things. So I accomplished a number of the goals I had set out when I started, and I've, developed a lot of strength. I probably changed how I work out now, kind of I injured my back at one point. So after that, I took it slowly coming back in. And after that, I was just less focused on going 100% in every workout and just, making sure that I'm here, but, and moving and, definitely working hard, but not always to the max effort, which is fine. And, I think that's something that I've kind of evolved to. So when I had a back injury, I was coming in and doing movements that were isolating away from the back. So I would do, for a long time, I was just doing, strict press or other things that I could get away without kind of twisting and things like that. And so as a result, I wasn't doing the actual WODs. And so I wasn't recording kind of the accomplishment for the day. I was just putting a smiley face every day. And so, after kind of recuperating from that injury, I just continued to do that, and it lasted for over a year. And, I also kind of just reduced my level of competition, I think, in that regard. Like I was, checking like the leaderboards basically, and like what am I going to try and beat today? Like, my peers, And I was like, I don't think I have to do that every day. I just don't feel, it was like unnecessary, to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. So yeah, so I think I changed my mindset a little bit on how I work out. I've recuperated completely, I would say. In some ways, I'm actually stronger than, before the injury, because I have really focused on my form and kind of core strength. A lot of it came through working with a PT and kind of focusing on what areas need to be really tight when doing something like a deadlift or any other, really any lift. Really bracing, really focusing on proper form rather than, speed or something like that. So I think part of that goes into also, just wanting to do things well and making sure that, I don't get injured again. And so I have pretty much continued with my kind of low competitive philosophy. I still kind of not compete with myself, but look to improve, right? And so I like the level method as it can be a benchmark as to how things are, either improving or staying the areas to improve upon. So when we started the level method, there was, a number of places where I was like really high on a particular level, and then there was some places where I was really, really low. And like today was front squats, and that was my lowest level. And when I just looked back, I have improved dramatically. Even today, like leveling up multiple times, which I didn't even realize. But, that is a good kind of record keeping. I like the ability to track things like that. And also to then, improve upon a particular area. I'm like, okay, I really want to kind of focus on that because I feel like I'm pretty accomplished in the other areas. And so there's one, or two movements that I think I could really improve upon. To some degree, we both, worked out before joining, both together and separately. But I do think that, just having a fitness routine in both of our lives kind of brings both a sense of kind of accomplishment and some amount of joy, just being able to, feel good, And so I do think, that her joining has helped to bring that, into the house more so, because I think before she joined, I was coming very often. And so, I think her joining has now allowed her to have that same kind of accomplishment feeling, Kids come to the kids classes and when they can, and they love it, they enjoy coming, and it's a lot of fun. And they just, feel like they are also improving and accomplishing, getting fit. I like the diversity of movements, and it's always different, but it always often is like a kind of either a full body, it's using lots of different parts. So it's not stagnating, I'm not always just like doing bench press, and squats, where you could kind of get stuck into a very routine workout, So the diversity of movements is great. I like, both the aspects of strength training and cardio training, and it mixes it all together. I do like, having kind of dedicated strength training sometimes in the beginning and then doing a Metcon or something after the fact, because I do feel like, it's nice to have that kind of dedicated heavy weight to improve on accomplishing more heavy lifts, so I like that. There's so many, different and hard workouts that, it's always something new and challenging. I think for me, finding the right pace and finding the right weight, just to make it just hard enough, but not like defeating. I was working out a lot before I joined, but I think now it's much more of like a part of my daily routine in a way that is more evident in my life, yeah. So I just think it's become more ingrained in what I do. I think for the new people, it can seem really intimidating and daunting. It's just a lot of terminology and, movements that are very, can be complex or, require a lot of very specific positioning, and, it takes a little while to learn that stuff. But I think one of the most gratifying things is in the beginning, you see such fast improvement and, you increase in strength and abilities, really fast in that beginning phase, right? And then you hit that plateau. And so for the 2 to 3 year people, when you hit the plateau, you might not be jumping up in your strength so fast, but you can really focus in on your technique and improve in that way. And there's a lot of room for improvement through that, yeah. So, as I've been kind of going kind of more slowly in increasing, weight or speed or whatever, I've really focused in on how do I, do the snatch properly, or the, really trying to get my form better and better for economy of motion and for safety and everything. So I think that, as you become more experienced, you really start to focus in on the fine details of the movements. It's always a mental adventure. Every workout, it's like kind of breaking through struggles and barriers and on a minute by minute basis. And so, it's always an accomplishment just to get to the finish line. I've done 1 or 2 muscle ups but I'd like to be able to really kind of I'm working on the technique to kind of be more consistent and kind of, I think I'm getting close to being able to do that and increasing some of my lifts, and I'm accomplishing that. Like I said earlier, the front squat has been, steadily increasing. So some of the squats and things that, I think my clean and jerk has been kind of progressing more so than some of my other movements. So I'd like to focus on back squat, front squat, maybe a little on deadlift, yeah. So those are my kind of areas of weakness. So I want to focus on that and see if I can, build upon it.